It's time. If you haven't seen me before, my name is Sunny, and I am attempting to go through everything in Star Wars besides a couple of things within the year of 2026. Is that physically possible? We're going to find out, because as Yoda said, do or do not, there is no try. I am joined by my precious nubs today, and that can only mean one thing. We are here to discuss Young Jedi Adventure, specifically Season 1. Tentative spoiler warning, I'm going to speak on specifically the last episode of Season 1, so if you want to avoid spoilers for Season 1, Episode 24, 25, whatever the last one is, maybe save this video and come back when you're done, because Nubs would never want you to get a spoiler. He is staying for the whole video, by the way. I love him so dearly. So I'm sure a lot of you probably have not seen this before because it is essentially Star Wars Bluey. It's not necessarily one of those children's shows that is overtly trying to teach your child a lesson. In that same vein, it is definitely a children's show that your child can glean lessons from, by the nature of these characters always being morally right. Young Jedi Adventures follows 4 characters. Nubs is one of them. He, of course, is one of the titular Young Jedi. We also have Kai Brightstar. We have Liz, don't know her last name. And then we also have one non-Jedi girl whose name is... I always forget her name. She's the one with red hair. Hold on, I feel like I need to look her name up. Nash Durango, who is the Han Solo Poe Dameron replacement, meaning that she's the pilot, she has the droid, and she also has the ship. So that's her whole thing. This show very loosely follows Kai, Liz, and Nubs. They're still in that younglings group learning how to become Padawans. And this series follows them as they train and do good around the town, which happens to be on the planet Tanu, and also sometimes on Batu, depending on what episode you're watching. Each episode is technically 2 episodes. They're 15 minutes each, so one episode is 30-ish minutes. And you'll get the full arc within that 15-minute block. We'll have an issue come up, kids will have to learn of the issue, and then by the end of the episode, they've completely solved it and learned some kind of lesson along the way. These lessons include, but are not limited to, the general idea of friendship, teamwork, selflessness, valuing relationships over material possessions, and so forth. This show also has quite a heavy-handed theme of be nice to animals, which I think is something that children's shows often have, because if anything, animals are fun to look at. I feel like I talk about this show quite often, even before I was on this journey. I have watched this show before. I have not seen the 3rd season though, so I'm excited about that. And I love it. I think it's so cute. Do I go and sit down and watch it every single day? No, of course not. But when I need some background noise or I'm in the mood to just have something on that's fun and kind of relaxing and generally has no stakes involved, this is what I gravitate towards. The animation style is so cute, and I wish that more Star Wars projects had this animation style. It is just riding the line so perfectly between that kid-friendly kind of gummy loose animation and what we as Star Wars viewers are more accustomed to with the Clone Wars and the Rebels and the Tales of series. It's adorable and it's so bright and friendly and inviting. What I want to talk about here specifically is the last episode of this series because it links directly to the book we are about to read, Light of the Jedi, the first book in Phase 1 of the High Republic. Young Jedi Adventure Season 1 doesn't have a set date or time that it takes place in, but the reason that I watched Season 1 before going into Light of the Jedi is because of this episode. The kids straight up go to Starlight Beacon, and the main antagonist of the show, Tabor, wants to steal the dedication plaque and ends up on Starlight Beacon, and the kids have to track him down and defeat him so that they can give the dedication plaque back to the people doing the dedication ceremony, right? Okay. That all happens, it goes without a hitch. We learn about Tabor's backstory. Very cool, very fun episode. Kind of more high stakes than any of the previous episodes have been, but it's the season finale. We gotta get some spice in there. At the end of this episode, the kids and Yoda go to the dedication opening ceremony speech that Lena So does at the end of Light of the Jedi. And in Light of the Jedi, which kind of dating this episode, but I just finished reading today, there is a throwaway line about Yoda being at the Starlight Beacon dedication ceremony with Lena So with a group of younglings that he has been training. And that's why Yoda is not present in this book or many other books to come in the High Republic Phase 1/3. Those younglings that they're talking about in that book are Kyla, Snubs, and also some other kids. In this episode, they are all standing there for light and life, sabers held high, even though they don't say for light and life in the book, it's fine. And that's straight up mentioned in that book. I had no idea. When I listened to that today, my head exploded, my body was gone, I ascended to an ethereal plane. I am no longer me, I am the shell of me that my soul left when I exploded into space after hearing that. Anyways, I love this show. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that it is better than a Clone Wars, than a Rebels, even than some of the tales. Not all of them. We'll get to it. But what I will say is that it is more fun than some of those. There's no stakes. It's not dark or gritty. No one is dying. No one's getting limbs removed. Between good and bad, there is no gray area. You're either Kylus, Nubs, or Nash, or you're Tabor, and that's basically it. And there's something kind of beautiful about how simplistic this is. If you have not watched Young Jedi Adventures, and I have not yet convinced you to do so, I think turn on the first 4 episodes and give it a try. That will be an hour of your life. If you don't like it after that, turn it off. I know not everyone is built to go watch Bluey at their big age, but if you are, or if you think that you could be, this show is just so cute. I'm going to say something that might make people mad, depending on how pro or anti-YJA they are. I think this is either an A- or a B for me. Just season 1, not thinking about season 2 or season 3. I definitely enjoyed it more than some of the books we read in phase 2 and even some of the comics that we read in phase 2. That's all we have for this one. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to follow along with the rest of my Star Wars chronological journey, make sure you press the follow button. And as always, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. We're so back. Consider this a general spoiler warning. We are going to talk about this book, nothing specific. So if you want to avoid any spoilers for Light of the Jedi, the first book in the High Republic Phase 1, save this video and come back when you're done. I do not want you to be spoiled. And while those people do that, my name is Sunny. If you have not seen me before, I am attempting to go through all of Star Wars within the year 2026, minus a couple things. So if that sounds like something you want to follow along on, make sure you press the follow button. So, Light of the Jedi. You all probably know at this point that I've read this book before. I read it last year, and it famously took me 6 months to get through. It was just too much for me. I am happy to report this book does in fact slap now that I know what to expect. My issue when I first read this book is the fact that it is so dense. There are so many characters that get introduced and so many brand new concepts, and it's just so much to, 1, keep track of, and 2, get invested in when you have no idea who any of these characters are and have a very loose idea of what this time period is and what we're working with. For those critiques, I think that my opinion remains the same. Had I not known who these characters were, I think that it would have been very difficult for me, and it was very difficult for me, to get invested and feel attached to these characters and this story. On second read, this book I think did a pretty good job of introducing everyone. There's literally so many characters that get introduced in this. Basically all of the main players for the next 30 things within Star Wars chronologically have to be introduced in this book, or at least set up for. And in that way, this book had a very difficult job. To give him credit, I think that Charles Soule did what he needed to do. I just think that this is a book that needs to be read twice. The first time I read it, I felt like I was being dragged by my hair physically through each and every page. Not to say that I didn't enjoy my time with this book when I first read it, but it was definitely difficult to get through. Hence it taking me 6 months to finish, even with switching to the audiobook midway through. This time around, it felt more like a reunion. Because I haven't engaged with the High Republic since July of last year. I definitely have been missing these characters, and as we were going through the High Republic Phase 2, quick disclaimer here, if this is your first time reading the High Republic, do not start with Phase 2. Start with Phase 1. Going through Phase 2, I was really just wanting to get back to these characters and this story, which is the complete opposite of how I felt when I was reading these for the first time, which I think is a nice change of pace. There are so many characters in this book that I love that I just kind of forgot about because of how focused I was on Phase 2. Even after reading Phase 2 for the first time, I was just kind of stuck there, I think, which led to some lower ratings for Phase 3. There is a lot to love in this book. My criticism still stands. It is really dense. Something could have been done here, in my opinion, to make this book a little bit more palatable for people going into it for the first time. But I also understand that that's kind of a skill issue on my part. I know most people who have read The High Republic have only good things to say about this book and did not have the same issue I had when reading it for the first time. But if you are in that same camp, if you've picked up this book and it was just too dense for you and you couldn't really get through it, one, I highly recommend the audiobook. Mark Thompson narrates it, and anything by Mark Thompson is a gift upon this earth. And I also recommend just taking your time with it. I know that kind of sucks to hear, because I am definitely someone who loves to blaze through a book. If I can't get through a book in a day, it feels like I am wasting my time. But for this one, because it has so much to set up and there's so many characters here to get familiar with, it's worth taking your time and really sitting down and understanding these characters, the world, what's going on, what the conflict is. When I read this the first time, I think that I gave it somewhere between a 2.75 and a 3.75. Second time around, I think this is a 4.25 to a 4.75 read for me. It was really enjoyable, and it only makes me more excited to go through the rest of Phase 1 with the refreshed knowledge of this book, and this kind of sparking my memories of how things go for some of these characters, which I know is about to be very sad, but very fun to engage with. If you have read this book, feel free to leave all of your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you think. Like I said at the top, I'm attempting to go through as much of Star Wars as I physically can this year, so if you want to follow along for that journey, I would really appreciate it if you press the follow button. I would love to have you here, and as always, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. I'm on the mission to experience all of Star Wars in chronological order, and today we are talking about A Test of Courage, the second book in the High Republic Phase 1. If you're new around here, we have already read Phase 2 because that chronologically comes before Phase 1, and I'm so happy that we have finally made it here because I have some drastically different thoughts on this book than I did when I first read it. Consider this moment in time your spoiler warning. We are going to talk about this book. Generally, I'm not going to give away anything specific about the plot, I don't think, but if you want to avoid any information and any potential spoilers, definitely save this video and come back when you're done. I would love to hear your thoughts, but of course I do not want you to be spoiled for it if that is not what you're looking for. So this book follows an all-new cast of characters from the last addition into Phase 1, which of course is Light of the Jedi. Most importantly, we get introduced to Vernestra Rwoh, who is going to become very important not only in the High Republic, but in later additions to the Star Wars canon, like the Acolyte. We also follow some non-Jedi characters, one of which is named Avon, the other of which is named Harmony? Question mark? And then we also have one more Jedi named Imri. So within this book, this cast of characters gets trapped on a jungle-like planet and they have to survive in this space until they are able to leave said planet. Along the way, we have some interpersonal conflict, of course, nothing super high stakes because this is a middle grades book. We get the chance to run into some Nihil characters that will come up later. When I first read this, I will be so honest, I was annoyed by most of these characters, but specifically with Harmony, Avon, and Vernestra. I did not care for them the first time I read this, and it kind of left a really sour taste in my mouth literally every single time that I saw these characters throughout the remainder of the High Republic series. Going into this time, I was keeping an open mind. I really do want to like these characters, and I have to say I did feel better about them this time around, and I think that partially had to do with me having the knowledge of what happens to these characters later on and kind of how they grow into their final form that we know them as currently. This was the case for me really with Vern. I felt a lot more connected to her. I found a little bit more nuance within her character. I don't love her in this book still, but with the knowledge of her character later on, I think that I was a little bit more ingratiated to her just in general. Last year when I read Test of Courage for the first time, I gave this book, I think, a 2.5 star. This time I'm leaving it with a 3.5. I enjoyed this so much more. It is so drastically short. I was listening to the audiobook on 1.5 speed and it was just about 3 hours long, so this took absolutely no time to get through. Some of my critiques do stand. I think this plot is a little bit lackluster. It doesn't have a lot to do with anything we were left with in Light of the Jedi, but I guess that's okay because it's happening at basically the exact same time as Light of the Jedi was, so we couldn't do anything too drastic. And I don't want to come off at all like I think that this is poorly written or bad. The first time I read it, it wasn't really for me. This was the first middle grades book I had read since I was a middle grades reader. Back then, I think I really wasn't prepared for the format of this book and how it was written. Now that I'm used to that and I have an understanding of what these books are supposed to be and who these characters are supposed to be catering towards children, I think that overall led to me having a much better time with this book. Rating wise, I think I liked this a little bit less than Quest for Planet X, but they definitely are in the same ballpark, so I think this is going to be a C or B minus. If this ends up being a B minus, I'll probably also bump Quest for Planet X up to a B minus right now instead of C. I definitely liked this less than that, but not by a lot. If you've read this book, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Like I said at the top, I am attempting to go through all of Star Wars chronologically. I would love to get that all done in the year 2026. By the day, that's looking less likely, but I am going through this as fast as I am physically able to, and I would love to have you here along for the journey. So if you want to be a part of this, make sure you press follow. Appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for being here and allowing me to do this very silly thing. And as always, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. My name is Sunny. I'm attempting to go through all of the Star Wars canon within the year 2026. Is that humanly possible? I do not know. Today, I've come before you to talk about Into the Dark by Claudia Gray, the next installment in the High Republic Phase 1. I'm going to start this off per usual with a light spoiler warning. I'm not going to be talking about this book in detail, but I will be saying some vague statements about it. If you don't want to hear that, maybe save this video and come back when you're done because I would love to hear your thoughts on it. And also while we're here, I'm going to go ahead and give my usual caveat. We started with Phase 2 of the High Republic here with this series. That should not be the case if you are reading the High Republic for the first time. Start with Phase 1, which includes this book, and then go on to Phase 2. With the housekeeping stuff out of the way, I am so excited to talk to you guys about this book. Of course, it's by Claudia Gray. In my opinion, one of the best Star Wars authors. Everything she writes is absolutely immaculate. She has written so many of the best rated Star Wars books. It's actually insane. Leia, Princess of Alderaan, Bloodlines, Lost Stars, this book, and Into the Light, both from the High Republic, are all her. If you are new to Star Wars books and you don't know where to start, I highly recommend picking up one of her books. This book, we are introduced to yet another subsection of characters. Most importantly, this little guy right here, Reath Silas, who I think I can say concretely is one of my favorite Jedi from the High Republic. One of my favorite characters, period. I really do like Reath. We follow Reath and his master as they were trying to get to Starlight Beacon from Coruscant, but they end up getting caught in space due to the Legacy Run disaster that happened in the first High Republic Phase 1 book, Light of the Jedi. And of course, in that book, after the Legacy Run disaster, all of the hyperspace lanes get shut down so that they can clear everything out. It's obviously dangerous to be traveling after a car literally exploded on the freeway. So they get caught on this abandoned space station with a bunch of ne'er-do-wells and generally unsavory beings. At that point, Reath isn't actually with his master, he's with a different Jedi master and then a Wayseeker named Orla Drenny, both of whom we will see a lot of in the coming books that have to do with this cast of characters. We also meet up with some ship people. I don't remember what their job title is. Haulers, I guess would be the best way to put it. They are ships for hire. Affy, Hollow, Lennox, last name I don't super remember, and Geode, the rock being. The story takes off from there as these cast of characters have to navigate being stuck in space for an unknown amount of time, and also as they start to get this really bad, dark, sidey feeling attached to the space station that they are stranded on. Truly, that is all I want to say about the plot of this book, because I think that this is the first book in the High Republic Phase 1, especially if you are reading it for the first time, that really resonates with just a general Star Wars audience. You don't have to read the first 2 books in Phase 1 to understand what's happening here. This, I think, by itself could be a standalone book or could even stand as an introduction to the High Republic, if I'm being so honest. And I say that with the caveat of, yes, of course, I firmly believe that if you are going through the High Republic, you should be going through the entirety of the High Republic. But with that being said, if you are the type of person who maybe doesn't have it in you to read all 30 whatever books in the High Republic, or if you are just someone who would prefer to read a YA over an adult or middle grades, I think this is a perfectly good book to start your experience. A little bit of a vague one there, but like I said, I definitely think that you should read this book if you are interested at all in the High Republic. If you have already read it, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Make sure you drop them in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Nubs is back on main, which can only mean one thing. We are here to discuss Young Jedi Adventures. This time we're talking about Season 2. I think we are going to be discussing some spoilers for Season 2 in this one, so if you have any intention of watching Young Jedi Adventures, which I low-key think you should because it's actually like kind of good, you should probably save this video and come back when you're done because I don't want you to be spoiled for this. While those people do that, if you haven't seen us before, my name is Sunny and I am on the journey to complete everything in Star Wars chronologically. That means all the movies, all the books, all the games, all the series, all the everything. They're attempting to do, minus a couple things that I don't have access to, but it's fine. Young Jedi Adventure Season 2 is, for all intents and purposes, just a continuation of Season 1. A lot of the same themes have traveled over, those being like, hey, be a good person, don't steal things, put others before yourself, people are more valuable than material possessions, so on and so forth. We are introduced to some more, I don't want to say adult or mature themes for a child that is maybe a little bit older, maybe able to grab onto nuance a little bit more. It's not a huge age gap, but it definitely is, I think, the difference between like a pre-kindergarten kid versus a kid who is in elementary school at this point. Again, this jump isn't super drastic. I just noticed that this season definitely deals with a lot more self-reflection and interpersonal communication issues. In general, just the ideas of good people can do bad things and bad people can do good things and where that line is kind of drawn. And while I do think that is a good message for children to get a grasp of, the general idea that not everyone is wholly good or bad, we're all sitting in this kind of middle gray space, I think that it is a little bit more complex, and especially with younger kids who I think would be interested in watching this show for one reason or another, might not grasp it as well as some of those older kids would. In my opinion, I don't work with children. I know nothing about this. This is just a general thought based off of someone who has been a child before. I'm gonna say straight off the bat, I really liked this season. I liked it more than the previous one. This could potentially be an S tier rating for me. That's how much I liked it. If not, it is definitely an A+, high A tier. Something that I found particularly interesting about this season, one of the new characters that's introduced pretty early on in this season, his name is Wes, and he is the Padawan to Master Zia, who is the like youngling caretaker. He's the master that's in charge of all the younglings on Tanu, and she gets a Padawan and brings him there as well, and he starts to help out with the youngling wrangling. I found his character to be very interesting. He is introduced as this sort of guardian, caretaker, someone to look up to role, but at the same time he is also introduced as a Padawan, which means inherently that he is still a learner and is not yet a Jedi Knight or really in any position to be teaching people anything because he himself is still a student. We see the younglings, specifically Kai Bright Star, really start looking up to Wes and wanting to be more like him. And we see Wes like showing off and doing all these things and teaching the younglings and giving them pointers and all this stuff. But we also see him make mistakes, do things that a full Jedi probably wouldn't have done and rush to conclusions and try to show off and all of this stuff. In terms of having this character that these children can look up to, who is not necessarily always doing the right thing and who is still making mistakes. And this is something that we see time and time again, the adults in this show constantly making mistakes or making choices that if they would have thought it out thoroughly, they probably wouldn't have gone with. And the message of that I really, really love. It's the Hannah Montana, everybody makes mistakes, everybody has those days. Also in the season, we get a little bit more time with Tabor / Cyrus, the spoiled prince character, who we learned very early on are the same people, but the younglings don't know that until this season. It's like the mid-season, whoa, where do we go from here kind of thing. And I think the way that they did it was really cool. The sort of catalyst for this event is the younglings are on Cyrus's planet, and a group of rival pirates to Tabor called the Gangles show up. The Gangles throughout this season have been kind of a powerhouse, taking over stuff left and right. So they show up on Cyrus's planet and they want to invade this vault that the king and queen have with all their jewels and whatever. And the younglings and Cyrus are like, not gonna happen, we're going to stop them. Before they start their mission to do that, Kai finds the Tabor mask and the lightsaber that he lost in season 1 to Tabor in this like very plain looking locker that's out in the open for some reason. And he struggles throughout the episode with confronting Cyrus about it. You see throughout the episode he knows that he needs to say something, he just doesn't know how to. He's scared about it, he's confused, and eventually through various circumstances it comes to the point where he has to confront Cyrus, and Cyrus basically says like, so you figured it out, I'm not sorry about it, I'm both of these people and we can still be friends, and if you're gonna be mad about it, so what, I don't care. The end of this episode, Cyrus decides to go full pirate. He doesn't want to be friends with the Jedi if they're not going to accept his piratiness or whatever. Kai and Liz and Nubs go back to Tanu. Everyone else seems to be alright with this, but Kai is like visibly not okay, and he like goes and hugs Master Zia and he starts crying and he's like, I know he's a good person, but how am I supposed to help him if he doesn't want to help himself? There's not really a satisfying conclusion to that, but I think that moment was really special and really important, again, specifically for a younger audience. And overall, I think that that reveal was handled in a really nice way. And I still think that Tabor is one of the most interesting characters that Star Wars has presented in this modern era. So that's a little bit homage season 2. Like I said, this is definitely going at the top of my list. I have not watched season 3 yet, and I think that's going to determine where this officially lies. Season 3 is so drastically short though, and I'm a little bummed about it. If you've watched the show, I would love to hear all your thoughts about it. Make sure you leave them in the comments. Like I said at the top, I am attempting to go through as much of Star Wars as physically possible, so if you want to follow along with that journey, make sure you press the follow button. Thank you guys so much for being here, and as always, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. I'm going through all of Star Wars chronologically within the year 2026, and one last time with Nubs, let's sit down and discuss Young Jedi Adventure, specifically Young Jedi Adventure Season 3. Consider this your spoiler warning for the duration of this episode. I don't know what I'm going to talk about here, but just in case you want to avoid any information at all on this final season of Young Jedi Adventures, maybe save this video and come back when you're done. This season is so much shorter. Other two seasons were clocking in around 25 episodes. This one is 7, which I just even can't begin to fathom. I hate that it was this short. And I also hate that I didn't really like it. And that stinks because I had such a fun time with seasons 1 and 2. Those two seasons, I think, will remain some of my favorite animated Star Wars projects throughout the entirety of this journey, just with the knowledge of the animated things that I've already watched. I'm not at all ashamed to say that I unironically love Young Jedi Adventures. It's so cute and so fun, and these characters are all so endearing. Is it heart-wrenching, thought-provoking, Clone Wars-esque content? No, of course not. This is made for pre-elementary and or elementary school aged children. As stereotypical and as kind of cringy as this sounds, I think that as you age, sometimes it is a good idea to revisit these child-based medias, because it is giving you reminders about how you should ideally be living your life. This show and shows like it are teaching kids to be selfless and brave and kind and thoughtful. While in our everyday lives, yes, of course, we know that we should be kind to people and not steal and all that good stuff. I think that when you're watching this show that is so obviously made for children and so obviously made to have an impression on young, impressionable minds, it is a good reminder of how you should be acting. And I think that some of us could really use that reminder. This third season, however, felt a little bit heartless. It really did feel like it was just making up plot points to get to an agreeable ending. And I honestly did not have fun with this season. It really did feel like a slog. It didn't feel at all rewarding up until the very final episode, episode 7. There is a new antagonist introduced that I found to be wholly annoying and unwanted. As a whole, this season definitely did not feel as fun. To end on a positive note, though, I did in general like the final episode. It is about the people of Tanu and the entire cast of characters that we've met throughout these 40 plus episodes thus far, coming together and throwing another celebration to invite new younglings to Tanu. And it is serving both as a retrospective to say like, hey, do you remember the first episode of this show when we were all younglings coming to Tanu for the first time? Wasn't that crazy? It's also there to show like a true passage of time. Liz, Kai, Nubs, Nash have all grown older. They have all the lessons that they've learned with them in their hearts and they're better for it. We get a satisfying conclusion to the story arc of Tabor / Cyrus, both within this episode and a couple episodes prior. We got a pretty satisfying conclusion to his story. And while there was nothing super special about this episode as a whole, it kind of has a lot to do with the new antagonist character that I don't really like. The kids kind of bringing him into their friend group and giving him the spiel about like it's okay to choose to be good. Up until maybe the last 7 minutes of this episode, I was fully prepared to give this season a D rating. But the last couple minutes of this episode kind of turned me around on the whole season, if I'm being honest. We get a scene where Cyrus gives Yoda some of the like magic beans that they went to go find within the first couple episodes of season 1 that set off fireworks, and it's nighttime and they all have a big group hug and reminisce about their first time coming to Tanu and talking about how one day they'll be Padawans and they'll have to leave Tanu, but they'll always have the memories and each other in their hearts even if they're not always together all of the time. And then there is a flash forward several years. I have been led to believe that it's 3 years, but I personally think that it's probably more than that. And it's the kids as Padawans with their master. So Liz ends up with Celesta, the girl Padawan from Batu that we meet a couple times throughout season 2 and 3. Nubs ends up with Wes, Master Zia's Padawan that we are introduced to in season 2. And Kai ends up with Bel-Zettifar, one of my favorite Jedi of all time. I cannot describe to you in words how drastic this is for me and how much I adore that character choice. My sibling and I, the first time we watched this, season 3 was not out yet. Belle hadn't even been in the show at the point that we were watching it. We're talking about how perfect it would be if Kai ended up as Belle's Padawan, and that was always kind of our group headcanon, was that Kai Brightstar and Bel-Zettifar were meant to be master and apprentice. The fact that they wiggled into my brain and found that information and made it canon felt very vindicating, but also so correct. I don't know if they always meant to do that, if that was endgame from the start, but I'm so happy that that's how it ended. There's also a scene where Kai and Belle and a Wookiee, who I believe to be Buryaga, are sitting around a campfire, like just talking. We don't hear what they're saying, but Kai's like being really animated and Belle and Buryaga are just kind of watching and nodding. And that moment after the trauma of phase 3, I felt something within me be healed. We haven't made it to phase 3 yet in this specific chronicle, but trust, I did not read phase 3 that long ago, and the scars are very much still fresh, and they definitely still hurt. That chunk within this season really, I think, turned around the whole thing for me, if I'm being honest. It didn't change a whole lot because overall I still think the entirety of the season was very lackluster. But those last couple scenes had me in tears and I can't ignore that. I think that I'm going to end up giving this season either a C- or a D+. For right now, I was kind of underwhelmed with everything except for those last 7 minutes of episode 7. And that, unfortunately, is all of the time with nubs that we get in the entirety of Star Wars. Personally, I think that it was not enough time. I could have used at least 100 more hours of this little guy. I feel in my soul that for every 1 hour I have to endure Anakin Skywalker, I should get 2 to 3 hours of nubs just as a cleansing experience. If you've taken anything away from the last couple of videos that I've made talking about Young Jedi Adventures, I hope that is the fact that you need to watch this show. And I think is all I have to say on the matter. If you have experienced any of Young Jedi Adventures, I would love to hear all of your thoughts in the comments. We've got a lot of the High Republic left to go, so if you want to follow along for my Star Wars chronological journey, make sure you press the follow button. Thank you so much for being here and allowing me to ramble about this children's show, and as always, I will see you tomorrow. Bye. In the year 2026, I'm attempting to go through all of Star Wars. Is that possible? We're figuring it out as we go. Today, I'm here to talk to you about the first 5 issues of the High Republic 2021, written by Kevin Scott. I'm going to be talking about this in concept, and I'm not really going to be going into heavy detail, but if you want to avoid any information about the first 5 issues of this series, maybe save this video and come back when you're done. I'd love to hear your thoughts, but of course I would never want to give you a spoiler that you are not seeking out. The High Republic 2021 mostly follows the people you see here on the cover. Skier, his Padawan, Keith Trennis, which is for some reason a very hard name for me to say, and Avar Kriss. The first 5 issues I think are the least interesting of what this series gets into. I have read this before, so I know a little bit about what's coming. It follows these 3 characters as they are trying to come to grips with both the threat of the Nihil and the threat of the Drengir within this pre-Valo time frame. This takes place post Avar Kriss becoming the Marshal of Starlight Beacon. What I really liked about the first 5 issues of this is that it's not trying to do anything super groundbreaking in terms of this storyline. It is truly giving you a taste of what is currently happening in the books in a visual comic format, and honestly, I kind of respect it for that. In a lot of cases with the High Republic, I don't really want them to go on these like groundbreaking, introduce 1,000 new concepts kind of side tangent. I would much rather them stay focused on the main plot of the books, because at the end of the day, I do feel like these are kind of supplemental material to the books. And with that in mind, I really liked this. One of my main critiques for Phase 1 is that we don't actually get to see a lot of Avar, even though I would consider her to be a main character. In these, she is a lot more present, and I think it explains a little bit why she's not as present in the book narrative. But besides that, I truly don't have any deep or groundbreaking thoughts on this. It was a fun read. It was easy. At no point was I wishing that I was done with it. I didn't find myself rushing through it, and I do find that to be the case with a lot of comics. Overall, this run is definitely worth picking up, if not at least that trade paperback, which includes issues 1 through 5. If you have read these issues, I would love to hear your thoughts on them. Make sure you leave it in the comments. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure you press the follow button if you want to see the next episode of this Star Wars chronological order journey, and as always, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. My name is Sunny. I am attempting to go through the entirety of Star Wars within the year 2026. Today, I am here to give our first tandem review of both Race to Crashpoint Tower and The Rising Storm, 2 books that in premise are very alike, but in execution could not be more different. I'm going to be speaking a little bit about the plots of these books, but nothing that I would consider overtly a spoiler. If you want to avoid any information about either of these, highly suggest saving this video and coming back when you're done. I would love to hear your thoughts on both of these, but I obviously do not want to give you spoilers that you do not want. And of course, I do want to give my regular caveat here. For the purposes of this Star Wars chronological order series, started with Phase 2. All of those are on my page if you want to go watch them. If this is your first time experience in the High Republic and you want to jump in from the first book, you should start with Phase 1 with Light of the Jedi. That out of the way, let's talk about these 2 books, starting with Race to Crashpoint Tower. Partially the reason I'm doing these 2 together is because these 2 books were released on the same day and have to do with largely the same event. Without reading them, it's kind of difficult to discern which one you should read first. I am here to tell you, you should read this one first, because stuff that happens in this book is directly mentioned and largely consequential to this book. The overall plot for both of these is that the Republic Fair is happening on a planet called Valo, and we are in the final days of it being set up. Everyone is coming in. When I think about what this conceptually is in my mind, I'm always kind of imagining part Epcot, part early 1900s World's Fair, and I think that's exactly what the vibe was supposed to be. Like, if all of the countries in World Showcase were actually floating, I think that's exactly what the Galactic Fair was trying to be. And honestly, that visual alone makes me kind of obsessed with it. Race to Crashpoint Tower, obviously very short, it's a middle grades book. It follows Ram Jomaram, who is a local Jedi on Valo, as he goes to investigate the recently downed Crashpoint Tower, which is actually a communications beacon. Little bit of spoilers here. They find out in this book that the reason that the beacon is down is because of some nihil, and they have to both fight off the nihil and get this tower back up and running. This book is extremely lighthearted, but it also has huge implications for not only the Rising Storm, but also for Phase 2. I don't want to give any spoilers there because I was honestly shocked rereading this. I guess I missed it the first time I read it, or I just didn't remember. Some huge things come up in this book that I was kind of shocked by. Overall, this book is adorable. It took me less than 2 hours to get through it on 2x speed for the audiobook. The first time I read it, I gave this a 5-star. I think because this was the first middle grades book that I read that I really enjoyed. Also because I really do love Ram. This is his introduction, and I had a really, really good time with this book. Going back and reading it, I don't think I liked it quite as much, but it's still definitely up there in my ratings. I think numbers-wise, I'm going to give this a 4.25 or a 4.5. For letter ratings for our tier list, I think this is going to be an A. The Rising Storm, however, this is a 5-star best of all time S tier kind of book. This is by Cavan Scott. A bit of a long one. This took me a little bit more than a day to get through. This book is so heavy. And I mean that tonally. When I finished listening to this morning, my exact reaction was to take my headphones off, toss them across the room onto a cushy surface so I didn't ruin them, and then say out loud, I hate this book, I hate the High Republic, I hate Star Wars, I don't want to do this anymore. And the reason I said that is because I was crying my eyes out all of last night and all of this morning. I forgot how hard this book hits, especially the end couple chapters. Obviously, I love this book. I love the High Republic. I love Star Wars. The emotional turmoil that I felt while I was reading this, I don't think that I can really put into words. This book has a lot more to do with the Republic Fair itself. It talks a little bit about the final stages of it getting put together, and things obviously go very, very wrong with the nihil showing up. Part of the reason why this book is so heartbreaking to me is the way that Cavan Scott wrote about Bel's connection to his former master, Loden Greatstorm, and the way that it kept being brought up, and eventually how those feelings kind of, I don't know how to say this without giving any spoilers, the way that the physical story of Bel and Loden ends in this book is so drastically heartbreaking, and the way that the final moments of that are written makes me want to cry just thinking about it. This book without a doubt is an S tier for me. It is so well written, it covers such a huge variety of topics, and I think it does a really, really good job of setting up for the rocket to the end of High Republic Phase 1, because this is just about midway through this phase. We have a lot to go from here, but this is definitely, I would say, the first real peak in conflict. This book, I would also say, is where we figure out that the nihil are not messing around and that Marcian Rowe is truly a crazy person. I love everything about that book. It was one of my top reads for last year. It's going to end up being one of my top reads for this year. I know that for a fact, even though we're only in February. That very loosely is a look at Race to Crashpoint Tower and The Rising Storm. If you have read either of these, I would love to hear your thoughts on them, specifically Rising Storm. If you want to follow along for this very wacky Star Wars chronological order journey, make sure you press the follow button. The goal right now is to be at Maul Shadow Lord by the time it comes out. I don't know if that's possible, so please do not hold me to that. But more importantly, I want to be at the Clone Wars animated series by my birthday, which is late March. Once again, is that possible? I've done the math in my head and I want to say yes, but if we don't get there, it's not a big deal. We are just setting long-term goals. If we don't happen to reach them, it's okay, but I do like having a finish line in sight for these huge projects. Splitting it up into segments is definitely what keeps me motivated to keep pursuing this overarching 500 things on a spreadsheet goal. Thank you all so much for being here, and as always, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. I am attempting to get through as much of Star Wars as I possibly can within the year 2026, and I am back again with a double review for both The Edge of Balance Volume 1 and Trial of Shadows. Very loose spoiler warning here, I'm not going to go into detail. If you want to avoid any information whatsoever about these two books, maybe save this video and come back when you're done. Edge of Balance largely follows Lily Tora Asi, and she is a Jedi Knight currently on the planet Banshee. She works within the Jedi Temple there, which is home to a couple Padawans/younglings and also home to her master, a Wookiee named Arkoff. There's some new settlers coming to this outpost near the Jedi Temple, and as she is trying to help both her responsibilities within the temple and with the Padawans/younglings, and also with her just general duties as a Jedi Knight, the Drengir show up and they have to take care of that. This for me was nothing super exciting. It is basically the same story as what we got in the first 5 issues of the High Republic 2021. I think I'm gonna give this one a B- or a C. I have a lot less to say about Trial of Shadows because I honestly did not like it at all. The first time I read it, I gave it a 2-star, and honestly, I think it's like a 2.5 now. Trial of Shadow is about a Jedi Master who, directly after the events on Valo at the end of the Rising Storm, talks to Stellan, Geos, and is tasked with finding out more about what happened on Valo, specifically about what happened to Loden and the Great Dustining of 2021. At this point, they have no idea what turned Loden to dust. They don't really understand if it's dust or not. There was no trace of Loden within the dust. There was no metachlorian count in the dust. They're just trying to figure things out. Along the way, this Jedi Master links up with a private investigator, and together they go about their business, going through what this book goes through. In the grand scheme of things, it is a pretty well-written comic. I personally just found it to be kind of boring. I didn't feel connected to either of the characters that we were following in this, and as a result, I kind of just didn't care and wanted to be done with it. Sunny from the future here, interjecting really quickly. During this video, I should have also talked about the High Republic 2021 Volume 2, which is issues 6 through 10 of this comic run. But if anything, it's kind of okay that I didn't mention it here, because if I'm being honest, something about the coloring and or the art in this kind of gave me the ick. It's gonna end up being a C- D tier for me. And now back to Other Sunny. That's my extremely brief review for both of these. Like I said at the top, I am on the journey to complete all of Star Wars within the year 2026. If you want to follow along for that journey, make sure you press the follow button. And as always, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. I'm attempting to go through all of Star Wars within the year 2026, and I'm here today to talk to you about Out of the Shadows by Justin Ireland, one of the middle books in the High Republic Phase 1. This is your spoiler warning. I'm not going to go into heavy detail about this book, but I am going to be talking about it, so if you want to avoid spoilers about this, make sure you save this video and come back when you're done. I would of course love to hear your thoughts on it, but as always, I do not want to give you a spoiler that you were not looking for. There are 2 wolves inside of me. One wolf can appreciate this book for what it is, and the other wolf really hated this book. This is a YA novel, as you can tell by the shape and size, and it definitely reads like one. I'm not going to even pretend like this book is on the same level as most of the other ones that we've read thus far. Into the Dark, the other YA that we read in Phase 1, feels like it is a mini adult book. It's not as heavy, the language is a little bit more simplified, but it still doesn't really feel like a YA, besides the fact that you're in the head of a YA protagonist. This book 110% feels like I would have really loved it had I been a freshman or sophomore in high school. And I know that that sounds like a dig. It's really truly not. I think something that Justina Ireland does really well is write simplified stories that hold a lot of weight, especially with her middle grades writing. Even though I can imagine there being pretty strict parameters on what they can and cannot do in a middle grades novel, it has to be a palatable narrative that a child could sit and read or listen to. And along the same lines, these YA novels can definitely be a lot more drastic than the middle grades, but there still is a jovial air to them. This book in particular did not feel as serious as the previous few have. And again, that's not to say that it's not well written, because it is. It's doing what it needs to do, and that is being a YA novel. With that being said, the wolf inside of me that hates this book really hated 2, if not 3 things about it. Let's really quickly talk about what I liked in this book, that being the more adult narrative that we got surrounding Vernestra, Imri, and Wreath. I am really coming around on Vernestra as a character as I go through my second read of the High Republic Phase 1. I enjoyed the setting, I enjoyed the overall plot and conflict of it. I loved the overall Graf Santeca feud that we got going in here. And that leads me to the first things that I really didn't like about this book, that being Jordana and Silvestri. I cannot stand those characters. I think I wrote them out of my mind because I did not remember them, and I do not remember at all how often we are going to see them moving forward. I hope the answer is none, because I truly cannot stand either of them. It just kind of feels like you were served the Jordana-Sil relationship and it was presented without telling me the ingredients. It was just kind of expected that I would be cool with it. And as much as I would love to be, because this feels like a very petty thing to be picking out of this book, it really, really irked me, and it just kind of soured the rest of the book. And typically, that would be the end of it. That would be my sour note that ruined this book for me, and I would give it like a 3.25 rating, and we would move on with our lives. The reason I feel so conflicted about this book is because I really do enjoy the back half of this plot. The other thing I really truly disliked about this book, and this again is personal preference, this is not me objectively stating that anything is bad, I did not care for the audiobook narration. Overall, it just was not very engaging in the way that I've kind of been spoiled from Star Wars books to be, especially when people like Mark Thompson are narrating. So I'm torn about how I want to rate this. On the one hand, the plot was okay. It was enjoyable enough. I think honestly, if I had been reading it, or if maybe there was a different narrator, I probably would have enjoyed this more. On the other hand, I found several of the main characters to be quite grating, and I didn't quite care for the way that it was written, but there were also parts that I really did enjoy. I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to sit with this one for a little bit longer and figure out if I actually liked it or not. If you've read this book, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Maybe it'll help me decide what to rate this. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure you press follow if you want to follow along for this journey. And as always, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. I'm attempting to go through all of Star Wars within the year 2026, and I'm here once again to talk to you about a High Republic book, that being Tempest Runner, the first, or technically second, if you're doing it in chronological order, audio drama. Consider this a general spoiler warning. We are going to be talking about this experience in general, so if you want to avoid any information, maybe save this video and come back when you're done. I don't like this book. And as a spoiler for Tempest Breaker, the audio drama for Phase 3, I remember not liking that one either. I went into this with an open soul, pure of heart, no malice, and I left this experience with the malice returning. I'm going to get to the point, but I feel like I do need to justify this with a little bit of a personal anecdote, so feel free to jump forward a little bit if you don't want to hear this. When I was growing up, there was a boom in audio drama style podcasts, like a Welcome to Night Vale, like a Sparks Nevada, Marshall on Mars. And I was huge into both of those. I'm giving this anecdote to say that I know what an audio drama is, and I have enjoyed them in the past. I have a fear that I'm going to continue to dog on all of these Star Wars audio dramas, but it's only because I want them to succeed and I want them to be great. All of the voice actors in this did a phenomenal job. And if I'm being honest, I don't even have that big of an issue with the script. My biggest issue with these audio dramas is that they jump around too much and you can't get a grasp on what the heck is going on. In writing form, we have a very clear separation of the same character doing different activities. In audio, what I think should happen there is a long pause or a very distinct sound effect. And in almost every case where this happens in not only this audio drama, but most of the other ones for Star Wars, there is none of that. We just keep going straight through. Besides that, I have said several times before on this page when talking about the High Republic and its various characters that I don't really care about Lorna D, and she's kind of shoved at us at various points in time between Phase 1 and Phase 3. And even after going through all of that now for a second time, I still don't really care about her. I don't find her character to be that intriguing. She's always kind of been this, like, bratty, woe is me kind of character. I can't find it in my heart to feel bad for her even a little bit. One thing that I did enjoy about this is that it ties in really nicely with the High Republic 2021 comics. If I'm being honest, I just wish that this was about someone or something else. We did not need the Lorna D expose, especially not in this format and especially not at this length. If you have listened to this one before, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Make sure you leave them in the comments. And as always, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. I'm on the journey to complete everything within Star Wars within the year 2026. Is that humanly possible? Don't know. I'm here today to present to you Mission to Disaster, the last middle grades book within the High Republic Phase 1, again written by Justina Ireland, who has written 3 books for this phase, which is kind of insane. I'm not going to be saying anything specific about this book, so if you haven't read it, this will be largely free of spoilers. This book, you can probably tell by the cover, follows Vernestra and Emery again, along with Avon, and a little bit of Harmony. He's not in this book too much. Picks up almost in the middle of Out of the Shadow when they are at Port Hayleap and there is an attack. Avon, who was there with a Gungan scientist, gets taken by the Nihil, and we see the aftermath of this play out in Out of the Shadows, but in that book we don't get any information about Avon being taken, and we also don't know specifically that it was a Nihil attack, if I'm remembering correctly. We do get that information in this book, and it follows separately Vern and Imri and a little group surrounding them as they try to figure out where the heck Avon is, and then separately Avon with a group of Nihil, specifically some Nihil scientists who are trying to use her to create some bad, nasty things. This book I found to be a really, really, really nicely done middle grades book. Similarly to Race to Crashpoint Tower, the last middle grades book we read, I really enjoy how tied in this is to the adult books, and I love that this is going to have direct implications on the books moving forward. With most of these middle grades books, I think that there are always some dips and low points, but as a whole, I found this one to be really enjoyable. I found myself really being excited for the parts with Avon in them, which is kind of interesting because I don't really like her character, but I think that she by far had the most interesting story in this one, and seeing her interact with this Nihil scientist and getting some more of the inner workings of the Nihil, which we honestly really haven't seen besides the stuff that we've gotten with Lorna D and Marcion Rowe, I felt was really interesting and really well done in this book. It was tame enough that children would be able to read it and understand it without being like too upset or have a ton of questions, but it was also definitely adult enough to be engaging for someone of my stature. In the hopes of keeping this video under 3 minutes long, that is all I'm going to say about it. If you have read this book before, I would love to hear all of your thoughts. Make sure you leave them in the comments. We only have a couple books left in Phase 1, along with some comics and some short story collections. Pretty proud of the progress that we've made so far, and I'm hoping to be done with Phase 1 by the end of February. If you want to follow along for not only the rest of our High Republic journey, but for our journey into the rest of Star Wars, make sure you press the follow button, and as always, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. I'm attempting to go through all of Star Wars within the year 2026, and I have made a mistake. A peek behind the curtains here, I record these videos as I read these books, and it takes me a lot shorter time to read them than it does to edit and get these videos out in a pleasing way. I don't love what I've been doing recently, which is posting 2 a day, but I got a little bit behind with posting these this month, so I wanted to make sure that I was caught up with where I'm at now, which is at the beginning of Phase 3 at the end of this month. But by March 1st, I should be done with Phase 1. That's not what this video is about. Somewhere along the way, I either forgot to record or deleted the footage of me reviewing the final installment in this omnibus, which is the High Republic 2021 issues 11 through 15, and also Edge of Balance Volume 2. Let me give you the quickest reviews you've ever heard in your life for both of these things. I had Edge of Balance first chronologically because the comics keep going after this ends a little bit more. I really liked this. I actually liked this more than the first volume. I'm not obsessed with any of the characters in here. I feel like Lily has a little bit of that like anime manga protagonist stink on her. This one definitely deals with some heavier topics and also falls in line really nicely with The Fallen Star, as does 11 through 15 of the High Republic 2021, which is a part of this omnibus. I really, really liked those. I liked them way more than I liked the second volume, which was 6 through 10. There was something about the art style on that one that I didn't love. This one kind of felt more similar to the first volume, which is 1 through 5. This is going to be somewhere within the A tier for me. I really quite enjoyed this one, and I'm not sure where Edge of Balance is going to end up. I feel like it's also going to be an A, if not a high B. Apologies for the unorthodox video, but that is where we're at. If you want to follow along for the rest of my Star Wars chronological order journey, you come at the perfect time. We have only finished Phase 2 of the High Republic, and we are about to finish Phase 1. So if you want to be here for the rest of this journey, which we have a lot to go, make sure you press the follow button. Thank you so much for being here, and as always, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. I would like to present to you one book that I really like and one book that I absolutely do not like. And the reason I'm clumping these together is because I have a lot to say about Fallen Star and very little to say about Midnight Horizon, so hopefully by putting them together, this will be a short and sweet, coherent video. General spoiler warning here for both of these. I'm not sure if I'm going to be getting into heavy detail. I'm going to try not to say anything overtly spoilery. If you want to avoid any information for these two, maybe save this video and come back when you're done. Fallen Star is first chronologically, so let's talk about this one first. This is by Claudia Gray, one of the best Star Wars writers ever. I have gushed about her writing over and over and over and over and over again on this page, and for good reason. She is legitimately one of the best authors currently in the Star Wars space. This book is immaculate. It is so deep and heartfelt. I could stand here for 40 minutes and talk about every single page on this book and how beautifully it's written and how cohesive this story is and how well it flows and how well Claudia Gray incorporated all of the characters that we know and love so much from all of these High Republic books into this one novel. This is a fantastic, fantastic, fantastic read. It is an S+++, 5-star, I wish there were 6 stars, best of all time kind of read. This again was one of my favorites from last year along with Rising Storm, and I guarantee you it will be in my top for this year. As for Midnight Horizon, this book is by Daniel Jose Older, who has also written quite a few things for the High Republic. This book follows Reath Silas and Ram Jamaram and a couple other characters as they go and do their own thing right before / during the events of Fallen Star. While conceptually, I like the idea of not every Jedi is at Starlight Beacon, not every single Jedi is dealing with what these books are dealing with, because there are a lot of Jedi and they're spread all throughout the galaxy, and in this moment the Nihil are only really in Wild Space and the Outer Rim and some of the Mid-Rim, but not much at all. So it makes sense that not every Jedi is hooked into that experience. This book, after Fallen Star, was such emotional whiplash. I definitely understand why people would like this book. Is much more lighthearted, but in my opinion it feels very out of place. I don't care for the writing, I don't care for the audiobook, I don't care for any of the new characters. The only characters that I felt attached to going into this were Reath and Jom. Especially for Reath, the way that he's acting in this book felt a little bit out of character. Jom to an extent too, but for him I can kind of accept this characterization. I really do not want to put this in F tier because that feels kind of rude, but for my personal taste this is one of the worst books I have ever read, and I'm so happy that we have gotten through it because now I never have to think about it again. That was my thoughts on these two books. If you have read either of them, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you want to follow along for this Star Wars chronological journey, make sure you press the follow button, and as always, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye! If you are up to date on my Star Wars chronological journey, you know that we have reached the end of Phase 1, but even though I have already reviewed the last 2 books in this phase, there are a couple things that I have chosen to read after these. Let's do a quick-paced, very little information, rapid fire of all of the stragglers from Phase 1 of the High Republic. The first straggler is Eye of the Storm, a 2-part mini-series about Martian Ro's backstory / what he does in the direct aftermath of the Fallen Star. These comics are by Charles Soule. I personally really like them. It gets a little bit weird towards the end of the last issue, but overall I think that they were well done, but it's so drastically short, I'm probably going to put that as a B+ or an A-. We then have Tales of Light and Life, which includes tales from characters from Phase 2 and from Phase 1. If you were to read anything in here, the 2 that I would personally recommend are the one about Axel Greylark. It's really fun, and when I read this last year, that was the one that really ended up sticking with me, besides the other one that I would recommend, which is about Bel Zettifar. I would say that that is the only one that is truly plot relevant for Phase 3. Something happens in this short story that will have a direct effect on him and the other character in that story. For me, is going to be an A or a B- as well. We also have Stories of Starlight, which is another short story collection. I didn't like this one quite as much. I do like the format of this book. I think that is really pretty. The font is so small. A couple of short stories with reoccurring characters and what they were doing on Starlight Beacon before the events of the Fallen Star. This was fun, but overall kind of forgettable. I'm going to put it in probably C tier. Sunny from the future cutting in here. I realized while I was editing that I neglected to talk about the Edge of Valence precedent. It technically takes place directly after volume 2 of the manga, but the majority of it is a flashback to phase 2 era around the time of the Battle of Dalna. It mainly follows the Jedi Wookiee Master Arkoff, and then this little like jacked Admiral Trench Spider-Man, who if you know me, you know I'm obsessed with him. Really enjoyed this volume. It is by far my favorite of the manga volumes that I've read. This was a 4.75 read for me. It's probably going to go in A+ tier, if not S tier. Back to the other me. There is one thing that I had on my list that I could not find anywhere, and that is Chronicles from the Occlusion Zone, which is a short story collection all by Lydia Kong. If I am ever able to find them, I am excited to read them because I do like Lydia Kong's writing. And those are our stragglers for phase 1. If you've read any of these, I would love to hear your thoughts on them. And as always, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!